Welcome back to the Heater Dynasty podcast. I'm your host, Eric Heater, your one-stop shop for all your fantasy football needs. And we're back with a third installment of this projection series. Today we're going to be tackling the AFC West. And I've been excited about this episode because there are a lot of fantasy-worthy players in this division this year and a couple sleepers that I'm looking forward to talking to you about as well. But the whole point of this series is to showcase this tool that I've created. It's a template on Google Sheets that allows you to project out stats for all 32 NFL teams and all their skill position players. It's a tool that you can adapt to whatever medium you're using, whether that's redraft, best ball, dynasty, even a little bit of DFS. It gives you a sense of what players matter the most to you, as opposed to just using a chart that everyone else is using, like on ESPN or Sleeper or whatever platform you're using. Instead of just using that basic chart, it allows you to customize it, create your own draft day cheat sheet, and have a better sense of why players are getting the target share that they are. So I like it. It allows you to kind of call your shot and makes fantasy a little bit more fun and a little bit more personal. So when you're getting ready for those drafts, either real soon if you're in Dynasty or in August or so, it gives you time to prepare, go in feeling a little bit more confident, maybe a little less tilting going on for you, and have a better sense of strategizing how that draft is going to play out so that you can find success this year. Before we're getting bogged into the details, let me show you where you can access this yourself if this is a tool that you are interested in. You can go to my Instagram at Heater Dynasty Podcast. And at the top, you're going to notice there's a Patreon link or an Etsy link. It's available on both those platforms for purchase. While you're there, like, subscribe, follow me, and check out my website too, because I've been working really hard. I have a bunch of stats and blogs and different articles that might be of interest to you. Check it out. Give me some feedback. Let me know how I'm doing. And if there's anything else you want to see, I'm a one-man show, so I can't get to everything, but I love to hear ways to improve and what I should be prioritizing, what people are looking for. If we get back to this tool specifically, I'm not going to go through an entire tutorial for you here. I have a full episode dedicated just to that so that you can get into all the nitty-gritty details that you need to of how to make this yourself. But I'll give you at least an overview. So when I'm talking through the AFC West today, you have a sense of what I'm changing and altering. So everybody is able to make a copy of this. When they do, you'll have this page right here, the league settings, where you're able to enter in the scoring format, and that's why it's a tool that can work in any format that you want. Right now, I'm just doing a basic full PPR for passing touchdown quarterback ratings, just to keep it simple. But you can adjust that. It gives you a whole guideline of how that works. The basic thing is just green boxes are information you got to fill out. Yellow boxes are optional things that can override the algorithms and all the historical data that has been put in there. And then blue and white boxes and gray boxes, don't touch those because that's where all the formulas are working. So jumping into the AFC West, I think there are so many fantasy options this year. I'm really excited about this particular division. I think it's going to be competitive this year with really any of these four could win the division this year, which makes it interesting. I think all their in-division games are going to be very fun to watch. Obviously the Chiefs probably had the best chance, but I think any of these teams could, and I think, spoiler alert, I think the Chiefs are not positioned to be as strong this year as they have been in the past. So we'll get into them a little bit more later. Right now, I kind of want to look at the division as a whole. I think Bo Nix, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Geno Smith, any four of those quarterbacks are all fantasy worthy this year, especially in a super flex format. If you're doing a QB one QB format, then you're probably only looking at Bo Nix and Patrick Mahomes, and then Justin Herbert if you're drafting a quarterback late as a streamer. I think you will. They are all very good quarterbacks. The running back is where it gets really interesting. The running back rooms, we have 3 rookies here. We have Ashton Genty, RJ Harvey, Omarion Hampton, who I think all 3 of those are going to be awesome fantasy options this year. Obviously, everybody's big on Ashton Genty. I think it's going to be hard to draft him in a way that is beneficial to your team because he's being drafted at his ceiling. So he's going to have to perform. Doesn't mean he won't, but he scares me a little bit. Of this 3, the one I'm most excited about is RJ Harvey. I think he's someone that you can get who might end up being a steal in your drafts because I think people are scared of J.K. Dobbins coming in and stealing his workload this first year. But we have to remember Sean Payton picked him, and he is kind of an Alvin Kamara type running back archetype as well. So I think it could be very interesting, and he could get a ton of targets this year. Moving down to the wide receivers, I think Lad McConkey, Rashee Rice, Cortland Sutton, Jacoby Myers are all the names that I would be most focused on in this one. I think there are a couple sleepers in here, are very exciting. Dante Thornton Jr. is the one that really sticks out to me. I know everybody was hoping Jack Besh, and we'll have to wait for training camp to see if this changes. But things were not looking good in rookie camp. Not that he can't be a good player, but I think Thornton might have come in and be a better fit for their offense there in Las Vegas. So we'll have to wait and see. And Troy Franklin is another sleeper name that I want to look at a little bit more. I think he could make a leap this year and be fantasy worthy. We're just going to have to kind of wait and see there. And then when we get down to the tight ends, I'm going to be talking about Brock Bowers, Evan Ingram, Travis Kelce. I mean, I'm going to be talking about Travis Kelce because of the name value more than anything else. But I don't think he is going to be as relevant as people want him to be. I think he's getting old, and I think he's getting old rather fast. So let's start with the Denver Broncos. And with this first team, I'll kind of walk you through how these stats come into being and how you can make them yourself. So when you start off, for each team, you're going to want to pick the total number of passing attempts, total number of rushing attempts, and that is what puts in the rest of the data for you. And every team has the last 4 years of historical data listed for you there so that it's easy to reference. And the general rule of thumb I use is I will go in and just kind of do an average. I take into account coaching changes or anything like that. So this particular team, Sean Payton was there last year, so I think we can use that data from the 2024 season to really see what's going on, as well as Bo Nix. He's going to his second year. I think they're going to build on what they did, but alter things a little bit. So you'll see I kept his passing attempts and their rushing attempts about the same. I have him at 575 for the season and 475, giving a total plays of 1,050 for this team. And if you've been watching these, you'll kind of see that's kind of where I fall for a lot of teams. I feel like that's the average, about 62 plays a game. And I have Bo Nix throwing for 4,000, just over 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. So I have Bo Nix really taking a good leap his second year, kind of keeping that momentum going from last season. I think he's going to have a little bit more, some bumps, and I think he's going to throw some more interceptions. But ultimately, I think he's going to be positive for fantasy. We'll see how good he is for actual NFL. But no, I was impressed last year. So I have him at a carry split of 21% for the team. You'll see here, this is where you fill out the green boxes. These blue boxes here will tell you their data, their average carry split. So this is the last 4 years for him. Obviously, he only has 1 year's worth of data, so that's what he did last year. And then the right column there is the 2024 historical data for you. So you have a little bit more understanding of what happened recently versus what has he trended over the last 4 years. So 21% for Bo Nix. I'm keeping him at the same place as last year. J.K. Dobbins, they have him listed as the RB1, and this is why everyone's scared for R.J. Harvey. It's opening depth charts, not a big deal. I guess one other note to tell you, these depth charts update automatically in this document for you. They are directly connected to our lads, so it's scraping data from there. So you don't have to manually change them every time a roster is updated. So that's a really nice tool as well. So what you'll notice is later on when we get to training camp and we all realize that RJ Harvey is actually the RB1, these two will switch spots. And then you might have to go back in and adjust some things on this side, but it makes it way easier than having to really be on top of their depth charts. Okay, so yeah, like I said, J.K. Dobbins, I'm giving him 20% of the carry split. I think it's going to go back down more towards his average. Last year, obviously, he was with the Chargers, and he was their main back before he got injured. RJ Harvey, I have him at 42% of the carry split. And then the other two guys I think are just going to be fill in depth. So I gave them a little bit, but I don't think they're going to be used as much because I think they've got their guy RJ Harvey, and I don't think they were very impressed with their other running backs. So that's why they brought in Dobbins. And then Marvin Mims, I gave him 2% as some just little gadget plays they like to run with him, some sweeps, some end around, that kind of stuff. For target share, we have 5% going to Dobbins, 10% going to Harvey. Your main target winner is going to be Courtland Sutton at 24%. And then I have Troy Franklin stepping up a little bit this year. He got 9% last year. I'm giving him 11.5%. I think he becomes a little bit more a focal point. And then Evan Ingram, he's their new, I hate the term joker, but Sean Payton loves it. So they brought him in to play that role is what it sounds like. So I wouldn't be surprised to see his numbers back to more his heyday in Jacksonville. So 19% is what I'm giving him. You might be like, hey, Eric, what are you talking about? His average is 15.9%. Okay, that's fair. But let's go look down at his numbers. Down here, we have him last year. This is the number that's really dragging it down. 11.7%. And then his, when he was with the Giants, 12.3%, because he only played 9 games last year. He got hurt. So that's dragging it down. In his heyday, he was at 23.1%. And even the year before that, he was at 16.4%. So that's what I'm basing it off of. That's why that number is a little bit higher than his quote-unquote average. Obviously, these numbers tell a story, but they don't tell the whole story. You got to kind of dig into it a little bit. But yeah, let me break down the Broncos. What does that mean? Well, Bo Nix, I have him as the QB5 on the year. He finished as the QB7 last year, so I think he will build on his success a little bit. One thing I need to adjust here, I'm noticing he threw 12 interceptions last year. I only have him projected for 10. I think I want to boost that up because, like I said, I think he's going to be given a little bit more rope, and with that usually comes a little bit more mistakes. So does that adjust much for him? No, nothing changed really. His total points came down a little bit. But I think that's a good spot. So I'm going to put it there. Dobbins, he comes in as RB49. I have him missing 2 games. He's always hurt. RJ Harvey, this is what I'm excited about. He's in my top 12. I have him as the RB10, which I know is higher than consensus, but he's the one that I'm kind of calling my shot on this year. I have drafted him in a couple of formats. I'm very excited. But yeah, no, I think he's going to be their bell cow. I think like an Alvin Kamara bell cow. So I only have him at 200 rushing attempts, but I also have him at 58 targets. So I think this might be conservative. I have him at 4.4 yards per carry. If you look down here, that's what Audric Estime did 4.1 last year. Jaleel McLaughlin had 4.9, and RJ Harvey is a much better running back. So I think the sky's the limit here. If he gets the workload, he's going to be good. Courtland Sutton, I have him as the wide receiver 19 on the season, so a solid wide receiver 2. I'm giving him 24% of the target share because, frankly, he's the best option that they have. And then behind him, there's a bunch of question marks. So I know I mentioned Troy Franklin as a possible sleeper, but you could call your shot on any of these guys. Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant, who they just drafted, Devon Vele, Marvin Mims. All these guys have potential and have had spike weeks in the past. And it really depends on how does this offensive coaching scheme see them, and how do they want to utilize them? Because I think I kind of have them all about the same thing. 60 wide receiver 66, wide receiver 76. Pat Bryant, obviously, I only gave him 5% of the target share, so wide receiver 120. And then Troy Franklin, wide receiver 84. But it really is going to be who shows them what they're looking for. I think any four of those guys could really pop. So keeping an eye on the waiver wire after a couple of weeks. Those guys could be someone that you could pick up. Not someone I'm necessarily drafting, but someone that I'd be interested in the early part of the season when we see what their offense is going to look like this year. Evan Ingram, tight end 5. I think he's going to be solid. I have him at 19% of the target share. Kind of already talked about that a little bit. None of these numbers look crazy. I mean, I feel like tight end 5 people are going to look at me and say, where are you getting this from? But he's going to be that joker tight end. I have him only getting 729 receiving yards, 82 receptions on 109 targets, and 4 receiving touchdowns. Like, these aren't crazy stats. I think it's just volume. He's going to get there. But yeah, that's really all I have for the Broncos as far as people that I would be interested in. If we move on to the Chiefs, honestly, I'm not big on the Chiefs, and I know part of it's probably bias. I don't want to focus in on the past success that they've had. I think they're an incredible football team, but I think for fantasy, sometimes they are more focused on winning and they do not care how they win. So it is about a war of attrition as opposed to actually flashy football like they've been in the past. So obviously Patrick Mahomes, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, maybe that could be argued the best quarterback in the league. I think for fantasy though, the target share just gets spread around so much, and he's not running as much as he used to. He is out there to win Super Bowls as opposed to win you fantasy championships. So he's still solid, but he's someone that I'm a little bit down on. Yeah, so walking through this, Patrick Mahomes, I have him as the QB9. That's what I'm saying. Like, he's just not flashy. He's not interesting. I think if you're able to get him later in drafts, then he's definitely an asset to your team. But in the past, he's had to be drafted so high because of his name value that I don't think it's been worth it. But maybe this year it'll be better because I think people are finally kind of cooling off on him. Not even going to talk about the running backs. Like I said, none of them I have him ranked as anything valuable. Isaiah Pacheco I have ranked as the highest, and he's at RB 44. Xavier Worthy, I have him as wide receiver 41. I don't think it's going to be crazy. He ended last year at wide receiver 35, and that was with Rashee Rice hurt for 3/4 of the season. Some of the reason I have him declining as well is because I do have Hollywood Brown taking a little bit more of the target share this year. But once again, fantasy relevant, I'm not sure. Wide receiver 65. Rashee Rice is the one bright spot on this offense, in my opinion. I have him breaking into the top 12. I have him as my wide receiver 12, so a wide receiver 1 on the season. I'm giving him 20% of the target share. He's getting 8 receiving touchdowns and so 1,150 receiving yards on 120 targets. So the only other name to really talk about with them would be Travis Kelce. I think this is the end of the road for Travis Kelce. He's a great player, and I think he still has a lot left, but I think he has a lot more coming after football, and I think he's starting to be ready to do that. So depending on how the season goes, if they get embarrassed again in the playoffs like they did by the Eagles this year, this could be the end. Obviously, he'd probably want to leave on a high note, but this could be his last year. I have him at 16 games played just because he's getting older and he's been taking a game off or here or there for the last couple seasons. Like I said, they're going to want to have him for that deep playoff run. So I think they're going to protect him this season because when they need him, they want him in the game. So I still have him as a tight end 7, but I think people are going to be disappointed with him as their tight end for the year if he ends at tight end 7. All right, let's move on to the Chargers here. So I think Justin Herbert is an amazing NFL football player. I do not think he is going to be that great for fantasy anymore. I think he's a solid QB2 if you're in a super flex league, but I think you're going to be ultimately disappointed if he is your quarterback 1. And I think it's something that is hard for a lot of us to accept. I know even this offseason, I was looking for another quarterback in my league, and I just, in my head, I'm always like, yeah, he's awesome. He runs, he passes well, he's a solid player, he comes in clutch. But under Harbaugh, I don't think he is asked to do much. I think he's going to be a game manager. They did let him pass a little bit more in the end of the year, but I don't think he's going to be anything incredible. I think he's just solid as a player. So for them, I have 550 passing yards for the team. I think, as you can see from 2024 versus 2023, they took a big step back in passing production and passing attempts. Oh, even more so in 2022, 711, 632 down to 510. Harbaugh wants to run the ball. And they just drafted a new flashy running back and brought in Najee Harris. So I don't see that changing this year. I think they let him throw a little bit more. So I gave him 550 passing attempts. But rushing-wise, I think it's going to be a 60-40 split. They have 450 rushing attempts, and I think they just want to run a slower paced offense. So I have them at 1,000 plays for the year. So a little like 59 plays on the per game as an average. So I do think they're going to run a slower pace, try to control the game, and just play some serious smash mouth football. He has 16% of the carry split for me. This is what's interesting to me is I have Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris almost in a dead split. I do think they want this to be a two-headed running back committee. I do think that Omarion Hampton is the better running back, and I think in the long run, he's going to be great. But I think this first year is going to be frustrating for people who draft him. But I think he's going to be way more efficient than Najee too. But Najee, I think he's a solid running back. He's not flashy, but he's strong, and he'll get the job done. So at 38% and 39%, even though Omarion Hampton has a slightly less carry split, I ended up projecting him higher because I think he's more efficient with the targets that he gets. And then really there's nobody else that I think matters. I think it's just the two of them, and Hassan Haskins, Kamani Vidal are just backup in case something happens. But as long as everyone's healthy, I think that's what it's going to look like. For target share, Omarion Hampton, I'm giving him 7.5%. Najee, I'm giving 6%. And for the pass catchers, Ladd McConkey, I think he is going to be their offense. I think he's their focal point when it comes to passing plays. So I give him 23%. I think he just picks up where he left off last season. I think he's awesome. A player that I have been targeting this offseason because I think he's going to make a leap. And I think he is the person that Justin Herbert is looking for on the field. So I'm excited about that. I think other than that, everything else is pretty well spread out. Mike Williams came back to the team, so Justin Herbert's going to know him, but he's old. He's a veteran presence, and I think that's really it. So I have him at 7%. He gets injured all the time. I don't think he's someone that they're relying on as much as more of a depth piece and a locker room presence. Quentin Johnson, I'm giving him, I think he's the one who takes the hit this year. I'm giving him 12% because the rookie, Trey Harris, I think is going to be awesome. I think it's going to take a little time. Harbaugh's an old school coach. He's going to have to prove himself, Trey Harris. that is. So I think he gets 11% target share, and I think that's really good for a rookie on Harbaugh's team. I would look forward for him in dynasty leagues going forward. Next year, definitely, but I think this year he's going to have to figure out NFL schemes and the NFL wide receiver routes and prove himself to Harbaugh to get on the field. Will Disley, Tyler Conklin, I'm at 13%, 10%. It's mostly just because of all the two tight end sets they tend to run. They like to run a heavy offensive scheme since they're a run first mentality team. So a lot of dump offs to these players, but I don't think either one's going to be really fantasy worthy other than a good solid flex option for the bye weeks of the players that you are drafting earlier on. So yeah, Justin Herbert, like I was saying, solid quarterback, QB 13, great QB 2. Would not want him as my QB 1 in a single quarterback league. Well, Marion Hampton, I have him as an RB2. RB2. He's going to be RB 22 on the season. So even though he has a smaller carry split, I think he's going to be productive. I do think it's a little elevated right now because I'm seeing I gave him 13 rushing. Well, I didn't. The algorithm did that based on his touchdown rate, but I think that's a little high. I need to bump that down. Let's go down to 10. What does that do? It knocks him to RB 26. So still a back end RB 2, but that's probably a more conservative, fair number. Najee, I have him as an RB 34, so an RB 3. And like I said, it's pretty much an even split. I think Hampton's going to have is going to be more efficient. That's why I have him at 4.4 yards per carry versus Najee at 4. Najee's just been a consistent 4 his whole career. Let's see. Like I said, Ladd McConkey, I'm really high on him this year. I have him as a wide receiver 7. So wide receiver 1 on the season. Overall wide receiver 7. I think he is solid. I look at these numbers. Nothing seems crazy to me for him to be able to get that. He was wide receiver 13 last year. He only played 16 games, and that was on 112 targets and 82 receptions. So I have his receiving yards going up a little bit. I think he's going to be utilized more so right off the bat from the beginning. But I don't have him as taking a huge jump, but 1,300 yards receiving and 8 receiving touchdowns. I think these are very doable numbers for him, and that puts him at wide receiver 7. Trey Harris, like I said, I think this is a sleeper pick that you could be excited about, especially for Dynasty. I don't know that he's going to be great this year, but they don't have a lot of targets to throw to, so he might end up being a flex-worthy start for you, someone you could target late in drafts. I'm giving him 11% of the target share. And then other than that, that's pretty much it. Like I said, Will Disley, Tyler Conklin, we'll kind of have to wait and see how that plays out. I have Will Disley as their tight end 1. He's just always hurt. So if he's hurt again, Conklin is an option. But I could see one of these two being fantasy worthy for you as a flex option for the bye weeks for whoever you drafted first. Whether, if you got one of the stud tight ends, obviously they're going to be in there all the time, barring injury. But that's the best I can do with those two. All right, last but not least, let's talk about the Raiders. I think this is a sneaky team this year. I think they could be more fantasy relevant than people are giving them credit for. I would say this entire team is just full of sleepers. Outside of Ashton Jeanty, obviously everyone knows who he is. They're excited about him. But I think there's some solid under-the-radar players here. Starting with Geno Smith. I have him as the QB 17 on the season. I think I wouldn't want him as my main quarterback, but I think he's a solid option as your QB 2. And depending on how the season plays out, he could be good. I mean, he's had seasons where he runs a little bit more than you think he does. He's in a new offense, so we'll have to see how that plays out with chemistry and stuff. But he's got some people to throw to. I think he could be interesting. I gave him 10% of the carry split. I gave Ashton Jeanty 52% of the carry split. I think he's going to be their main workhorse right off the bat. And I don't think anyone else really is going to matter outside of an injury. Raheem Mostert, he's so old. I think he's there just as insurance. I gave him 19%. Sincere McCormick, 10%. I wouldn't be surprised to see these two switch, and Sincere be the backup. I think he did a good job last year. I think the team likes him. I think Raheem is just getting old. So we'll see what happens. For target share, it's Brock Bowers as the top option, 25% target share. This puts him as a tight end 1 overall for every team. I think he's going to be incredible this year. I think he's going to probably be able to receive more touchdowns with Geno Smith throwing the ball as opposed to the trash that was Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew last year. So I think he is going to do even better in his second year. But those aren't hot takes. Everyone feels that way. I think the more of a hot take is that I am so high on Jakobi Meyers. I think he's going to be really sneaky good. He's going to get 21% of the target share because now that Devontae Adams is off that team, there's not much else. There's Trey Tucker and Dante Thornton. Dante Thornton is a rookie. I think he is going to be what everyone thought Jack Bech was going to be. So I've given him 12.5%. I'm giving Trey Tucker 11%. I'm giving Jack Bech 1%. And that might change when I get to training camp. But right now, I have been not impressed at all with him. And I don't think they are either. I think he's going to take some time to develop. And I think he was someone that we really liked in the combine, but has just not proven on the field yet. Obviously, with a very limited workload. We haven't seen much yet. So that could definitely change, and I could look like an idiot. But as of right now, that's the take I'm taking. So, yeah, I said Geno Smith as QB 17, Ashton Genty, our running back 5. So I think that's really solid. I kind of mentioned it at the top. I think he's going to be someone that you will ultimately be a little disappointed in if you take him in the first round in your fantasy drafts this year, because it's just a scary thing. Like, would you rather have him or would you rather have Christian McCaffrey? Would you rather have, I'm trying to think who else is going around him. I don't know. I think some of the other options might end up being better, or I think I'd rather go with the wide receiver right there and then grab someone else in the second. But that's just me. If I'm going down here to wide receivers, so Dante Thornton, I have him as a wide receiver 60. Trey Tucker, wide receiver 61. I kind of have them right in the same spot. I think they both could be great flex options for you or some solid depth pieces. Jakobi Meyers, I have him as wide receiver 27. Even though he has 21% of the target share, it's usually more short area targets. His catching percentage isn't super high. I could boost this up a little bit now that I'm thinking about it, because Geno is going to be more accurate than what he has been receiving. So if you look at his average, let's do 70%, just because, he hasn't had a good quarterback thrown to him for a while, but that's a little bit closer. That makes me happier. Yeah, they're a wide receiver 2. I think that's a much cleaner number for him. Wide receiver 21. I like that. And yeah, I got nothing for Jack Bech. I'm sorry, buddy. Brock Bowers. He's going to be awesome. I have him at 150 targets. I have him at 1,100 yards. I've got him at 7 receiving touchdowns. Like, he's going to be good. He's going to be good this year. Like I said, not a hot take. But anyway, yeah, that's the AFC West. Thank you for sticking through this with me. If there's things that advice you have for me of how to make this more helpful for you, or there's questions you have about this document, by all means, ask me in the comments. You can leave a comment on YouTube, Spotify. You can send me a message on my website. DM me on Instagram, wherever. I'd love to hear some feedback. But yeah, I think this is helpful for me in my fantasy football knowledge. It helps me solidify who I care about the most. And I think it will help you too. So until next week, see ya.